Hey there everyone, it's Vicki Howell and this is Ask Me Monday. Today I'm going to show you how to seamlessly join knit mitered squares for any project really, but specifically for our brand new Spare the Square knit shrug. Before we get started though, I've got just a few seconds of zen showing you what's going to be a later giveaway from our sponsor, Knitter's Pride. All right, so gorgeous. Be sure to stay tuned to the end of this episode to learn what you need to do to be entered to win the day and night set. All right, let's get started on our mitered squares seamlessly. Okay, let's take a closer look at the Square Shrug. Now this tutorial will work for anything that you want to make that is modular like this. So if you want to go rogue, and I highly encourage it, to design a scarf or a sweater or a hat, you can still use this method. We of course would love though if you made our shrug. And it was just made in rows of these squares, 4 rows. And then we folded it in half, seamed the sleeves, and then picked up stitches all around and worked a ribbed collar and did the same for our cuffs. And this is another great reason to choose an interchangeable set like the day and night that I open the show with, and that I'll be giving away at the end of it, because you want to work with circular needles just to be easy on your wrists for this portion, even though it's worked back and forth. But this portion, it's a must because you have this large circumference that you're working around. So if you have that all in one set, it makes it so much easier and cost effective. Okay, so this entire square is made up, or excuse me, shrug is made up of these squares, which is our focus, as I mentioned. What we're going to be doing is, in the actual pattern for the shrug, we have given color grids, we've given ideas, we've talked about striping. None of that matters for this tutorial. We're really just focused on the squares. So I'll be working in solids, but you can find the link to the kit and the pattern at vickihowell.com in the same place that you can find the instructions for the swatch pattern for just learning how to use this method. All right, so first let's talk mitered square. Mitered squares can work in a few different ways, and in the past, those of you that have watched my videos for years know that I've done projects before where we use a method where we decrease 1 stitch on either side of a stitch marker. For this particular method, we're using a double decrease again with sort of a decorative, what will look like a decorative knit stitch that runs along the center point of the square, or rather diamond at that shape. So I'm going to show you how to work that. You're going to cast on 29 stitches, and again, this is written out at vickihowell.com. And I am using the aforementioned day and night needles. And you're going to work a wrong side row. I've already done that behind the scenes. All you need to know is that we cast on 29 stitches, we knit 14, we placed a marker on the center stitch and then knit to the end. So you have garter stitch sides and a knit stitch, or stockinette stitch, I guess would be more appropriate, center stitch. We've placed the marker on that. I also have moved the marker to the front so that you could see it better. So this is actually our row 1 now. That setup row just counts as just that. So we're going to, on all right sides, so in perpetuity until we're done with this square, we are going to knit until we get to 1 stitch before our marker, our marked stitch rather. I feel like this is a really nice, like mindless / mindful project. You can zone out a little bit, but there's just enough interest to keep your mind active. Okay, so we're at 1 stitch before, and this is where it's time to do our double decrease. So to do that, we're going to do what's called an S2KP. So we need to slip 2 stitches, and we're going to do that knitwise. So we're entering in as if to knit. Slip those stitches over. Then we want to knit the next stitch, and then we want to slip those slip stitches, both of them. And you could either do it one at a time. I think it probably looks better if you do both. It's up to you. Over that knit stitch. Make sure you get all of the plies of the yarn. And that will create your knit stitch, or the look of a knit stitch, for your center. Now at this point, it's important to move the marker up, because on the wrong side, you need to know which stitch you're on. I usually just put it right in the actual loop, because then it's easy just to flip from right to wrong side. Okay, from there we've done our decrease, and so then we just work. We just knit all the way to the end. Okay, now we've finished row 1, which will be exactly like all of the right side rows for this entire square. So now let me just show you how to work the wrong side. On the wrong side of these squares, you are not decreasing. You're working all stitches as they present themselves. So that means knitting until we get to our stitch marker. And then when you get to the stitch that you have marked, which is this one, and remember I told you about putting the stitch marker on the actual loop, I could flip it over and see right here that this is what the one I want to be working. So just move it wherever you need it to be. You want to purl this stitch, because this is, as I said, the center stitch is worked in stockinette. And then you revert back to knitting, and you just knit all the way to the end. And that is all you will do until you have decreased to shut your square. All right, now let's talk about seaming. Okay, so here I have a finished square. This is actually one that I had pre-made that I showed you earlier. And we are going to now work on our second square, which we would build sequentially this way for as many as we wanted to, and then we would work on the next column or columns. Our next square is going to be worked up here. But as I have been teasing this whole time, we will not be seaming them later by stacking them and whip stitching, because I like to avoid finishing. We will be connecting them as we knit the second one. So you want to make sure that your first square is oriented so the original cast on row is at the bottom and right side as it faces you. Let's set that aside for just a second. Then we're going to take our yarn and your desired color, and we're going to start with what I usually call an E-wrap, but is also called a backward loop cast on method. And we want to cast on 15 stitches. So you make a little backward loop, or E, insert, and you'll just do that until you have 15 stitches. So let's go. Okay, so now we have 15 stitches cast onto our needle. And this is where we're going to join it to our other square. So now we want to pick up stitches along the top of this edge. So we're going to pick up 14 stitches. And you can just use your ridges as a guide. So you insert yarn over, pull up. And you're going to do that all the way across. All right, so now you have your total cast on number. You've got your 15 backward loop cast on stitches, your 14 picked up stitches, and from here you're going to work this square, the second square, exactly how you worked square 1 by setup row, knitting 14, placing a marker on that next stitch, and then knitting to end, and then working our mitered square as we would, and it'll close and stack, and that's all there is to that. All right, as you're finishing that second or subsequent, depending on where you're at, square, you're at your final row, which is your final decrease. So it's just our S2KP one more time. And then you'll pull the loop, fasten off as you normally would. Let's just pretend I have scissors. So you just slip it through and tighten. And then that is that. That's what it looks like. Look how clean that is. No ends to weave in, other than this, tiny one here. Super simple. And then from here, you would just continue on. You would build up this way and then scoot over your column if you're going to keep going. Cast on your stitches, pick up along these sides. So in the bumps, makes it super easy. And you just build and build and build. Super fun and super easy. And you can do it for a straight piece like a scarf, or go big or go home with our Spare the Square Shrug. All right, that is it. All right, now that you know how to knit, it's time to go get it. By just going to VickiHowell.com, you can get all the instructions for the swatches, plus links to the tools I used, as well as both the pattern and the kit info for our Spare the Square Shrug. All right, now let's talk giveaway. All right, all you need to do to be entered to win this gorgeous day and night set is simply post when your favorite time to knit is. Is it day? Is it night? If you set the seam, I'll give you some emotional bonus points. So for me, I love evening knitting with my favorite project, a glass of red wine, and a great psychological thriller. All right, be sure to post yours by October 28th at 11:59 Central to be entered to win. Until then, take some time to be creative.